The Honorable, the Speaker.
Member for Laventille West, you have 18 minutes and 34 seconds left.
Thank you very, very warmly again, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, when we took the break, I was making the point that we had put together a very professional team of all the key stakeholders who worked closely and diligently together, so that when this bill becomes operationalized, there will be a seamless collaboration as well between the key agencies of the state, as I described a while ago, that can further strengthen the gathering of intelligence, some of which was broached by the Attorney General in his contribution about the arches and the cameras and what have you, and the license plates and all of that, to continue that collaboration in the sustained fight against crime in Trinidad and Tobago. So the measures before us today are not about traffic management and the behavior of some citizens' simplicity. It has as well to do with the more sustained focus on dealing with crime and the use of technology in so doing. Madam Speaker, the bill before us seeks to achieve four very important things or elements.
Leave the chamber and deal with their device, please.
Decriminalization of certain traffic offenses by making them traffic violations. And that is a very critical thing. It moves it from the criminal jurisdiction, particularly in the magistrate's court, treating it as violations, and it could be dealt with administratively in collaboration with the licensing authority, as the bill will reveal. Introduction of red light camera enforcement system by inserting a new Part 5A in the present Motor Vehicles and Road Traffic Act. Thirdly, introduction of the demerit point system, introducing a new Part 5A. And reforming the fixed penalty ticketing system by repealing the current Motor Vehicles and Road Traffic Enforcement and Administration Act, which governs the fixed penalty system, Chapter 4852. Madam Speaker, in order to fully appreciate what this bill is designed to do and what in fact it will do, one has to understand a little better some of the tribulations, the troubles with the magistrates' court. The Attorney General alluded to it, but just for amplification, justice system is a little bit slow, and that slowness, that sluggishness, has given rise to all manners of difficulties. When I was the Minister of Works and Transport, I was very much in relation of the policy that gave birth to this legislation. A lot of research went into it, and the evidence out of that research led us inexorably almost to the point of the legislative amendments that we have here. So again, this is here not because of the whims and fancies of or the ego of the Attorney General or the government, or wanting to collect more revenue. Necessary as collecting more revenue must be in these circumstances, but really it is as a result of identifying some key problems in the society which these amendments are targeted to resolve. Let me quote in support of that some statistics from the official website of the judiciary, so that, Madam Speaker, you and others could fully understand the significance of this legislation as a problem-solving mechanism. Between 2014 to 2015, 66,792 tickets were issued. 43,445 were paid, raising revenue of $37.1 million. But the unpaid tickets were 23,465. Between 2013 and 14, 76,181 tickets issued, 532 paid, 21,649 not paid, and the revenue from that was $50.2 million. Between 2012 and 13, 64,000 tickets issued, 44,000, I'm just roughing it here now, 44,000 paid, 23,837 not paid, yielding revenue to the state in the sum of $39.7 million. And lastly, Madam Speaker, between 2011 and 2012, 81,346 tickets issued, 29,808 paid, 51,000, a greater number, remained unpaid, 51,538, yielding revenue of $43.7 million. So that in cases where they are not paid, the ticket itself is a summons because it has a fixed date on it. And it says if you don't pay the fine by that date, and the ticket itself identifies a date, a summons for you to appear in court to challenge it on the basis of your non-payment. And therefore it is now listed as another matter, as if a police officer had filed an original complaint in the court. So that between 2011 and 2015, 120,489 new traffic cases came on the magistrate's court list as a consequence of unpaid tickets. In addition to the other traffic offenses committed by drivers for which they would have been charged in the thousands, you can imagine how the system is choked and clogged, cumbersome and slow. Every day, police officers have to attend court, police witnesses have to attend court, defendants have to attend court, the courtrooms are packed, the magistrates can't get much done, and it's adjournments. It makes a mockery of the justice system. It brings the justice system into disrepute. But those who are opportunists in our society, seeing that weakness, they capitalize on it. It is better for them, they rationalize, not to pay the ticket, since there's a high probability that the matter will never come to conclusion if they don't pay the ticket and they don't show up in court. Because they know these facts. So those weaknesses in the system laid a playground for the opportunists among us and repeat traffic offenders. One person I am instructed called in a radio station boasting that he received about 7 tickets and he didn't pay any, and there was no sanction. Yes, and by so saying on public radio, it encourages other citizens to behave similarly. It demoralizes the police who would have taken time to issue these tickets. And in the police traffic branch, at the current time, there might be approximately 343 traffic branch officers, and you can imagine them grappling with 120,000 matters in the court. And these magistrates, sometimes in uncomfortable circumstances. And where will these officers find time to go and do the other police work that my friends on the other side talking about? Because some of the criticism about these measures is that the government only want to get money, raising revenue. Well, Madam Speaker, nothing is wrong with that. Raising revenue, especially in this time. When we cut back on expenses, they vex. When we impose taxes like the property tax, they challenge it, they vex. If we borrow from the state, if we take money from the Heritage and Stabilization Fund, they vex. If we borrow money to service the country, they vex. They don't want nothing. They vex in government. They just vex. George Chambers comes to my mind. They are too, let me leave that. But Madam Speaker, how then? So that once the ticket is unpaid, it is listed as a matter in the court, and you have this kind of situation out of which people can gain advantage. This new system being introduced in this bill, where if you do not pay the ticket, you can't just sit down and expect to benefit from the inefficiency as I've just described it. You have to do something else. As I said earlier, you have now to file a notice to contest. You have to make up your mind for that. And if you don't do that, then when the ticket becomes due and you don't pay it, and you don't file the notice to contest, within 14 days, it moves from $1,000, for an example, to an additional, there's a penalty of 25%. Much like happens in NIB. Today is the 14th of the month. Tomorrow is the 15th. If these employers of this country don't pay the NIS dues for their staff, by the 15th of the month, a penalty immediately of 25% ensues. This is it. I did a feature address or two in the United States, and when I collected my checks for my presentations, Madam Speaker, it was short on tax. Well, they taxed it. Withholding tax. Taxes are important everywhere. And that's the reason why we are pressing on the property tax, and I want to I want to thank God that He intervened and put an end to some of the wickedness in the society against the property tax. But I'll say more about that at another time and another place. So as I said, this is intended to improve the situation. People commit crime and break the law generally, including traffic violations, because they have no fear of consequences. They see the weakness in the system. Look at what happened with Father Harvey. I don't want to go too far, but that is an example of the point I've just made, Madam Speaker. People now have no fear even for God. But I spent some time on patrols with the U.S. police in the county of Halifax some time ago, as I said here before, and I saw how that system works. And I spent some time living in England too, and I know when you don't pay, what happens if you don't pay a ticket fine. Although on one occasion I challenged one, and I paid it, challenged it, won the challenge, and my money was returned to me, £45. So this bill allows for challenge as well, Madam Speaker. Due process, as I told you. If a person doesn't appear in the current arrangements, a warrant is issued for your non-appearance. And then the police now has this warrant and they have to find you. You may have moved from Toko and now you're living in Carnage. All of these things happen. Or your address is Light Pole number 99, Naparima Mayaro Road. You had to find. So that during the state of emergency back in 2011, the only good thing about it that I recorded, everything else was wrong about it, misjudged, out of place, improper. The only good thing about it, the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, an organization out of which I had come as a young man, having spent 7 years of my youth in there, and trained recruits as a police instructor myself. The police during those 3 months of the state of emergency, I think it was 3 months. Yes. They executed 8,000 outstanding warrants in this country. Warrants with cobweb. They couldn't. I mean, that I admired about the police service, demonstrating that they had the capacity to rise to the occasion as they do today. As they do today. The present legal framework does not empower the courts or the state to take other innovate punitive actions against an offender without the burden, adding the burden to the criminal justice system and the administration of justice. In other words, in the current arrangements, there is no way you can deal with that offender, even a repeat offender, without adding the matter to the court list and adding to the burden. So it becomes, in a sense, counterproductive. Here the Chief Justice at the beginning of the 2015-16 law term, let me quote him very quickly in support of what the Attorney General is offering us here today. I quote, "Traffic matters amounted to 56,744 of the new filings during the year 2015. And I have been saying over and over again, magistrates do not need to be dealing with minor traffic matters like tickets. They should be doing case management and trials. The technology exists for smart licenses and immediate electronic citation. Maybe in default, one should not be able to register a new vehicle or renew a driver's license. And an unsuccessful challenge should lead to a doubling or tripling of the fine. And we should introduce a points system, demerit points, with automatic disqualification beyond a threshold and a mandatory driver education before renewal. And I believe that that should be effective motive at behavior modification, unquote. Madam Speaker, every single word expressed by the Chief Justice from his bully pulpit on that occasion is to be found in the measures in front of this House today. The merit points, an administrative way of dealing with the thing, the need for rehabilitation, which I will come to later. Every single element is taken into account. So what we did in the Ministry of Works, what the Attorney General, who was working constantly with us all along this process, we took into account the advice of the Chief Justice, and he wasn't the only one. As far back as 2007, Mr. Roger Hamel-Smith, acting as Chief Justice, at the mark of the new law term on Monday, the 17th of September of that year, 2007, he is quoted as saying, I quote, "Out of the 22,000 ticket cases received in the courts every year, all tickets are sent to the courts for payments. 50% of the fines are paid either before or after hearing before a magistrate. The other 50% remains in the system as unpaid until warrants can be enforced. That represents a loss of immediate revenue in the sum of $8 million a year. The collection of fines is an administrative function and not a judicial one. By freeing up the judicial system of this task, judicial time can be better spent on dealing with more pressing criminal matters." Exactly what we are doing in these measures. But yet, Dr. Rudal Munilal, the member for Oropouche East, in his usual flippant manner, gets in front of cameras and in front of citizens of this country, and in criticism of these measures, Madam Speaker, he said that this bill is geared towards raising money, and you heard it from Tabakit.
Kindly provide citation.
Colleague?
Yeah.
Okay, colleague. Go ahead.
Citation.
What?
Source.
Okay. This was I am quoting from an Express article dated March the 3rd, 2017, which referred to the Member of Parliament for Oropouche East, Dr. Rudal Munilal, when he said the continued emphasis on speed guns, which we introduced and which had a major impact on the society and safety. Let me continue. He said the continued emphasis on speed guns and breathalyzers, while the violent crimes siege has turned Trinidad and Tobago into one of the deadliest countries in the world. What he's alluding to there, what he's saying, is that we are spending time dealing with traffic violations and not dealing with real crime. When, in fact, Mr. Roger Hamel-Smith and all the experts will tell you, in fact, most of the crimes that take place involve the use of motor cars on the road. And proper road traffic management and enforcing the law on the roads go a very, very long way. As a matter of fact, an American researcher by the name of Tom Vanderbilt, he, in a work entitled "In Praise of Traffic Tickets," don't roll your eyes, Mr. America, they're good for you in more ways than you think. In the opening paragraph of that article, Mr. Vanderbilt asks rhetorically, what do Timothy McVeigh, Ted Bundy, David son of Sam Berkowitz, and 9/11 ringleader Mohammed Atta have in common? They are all murderers, yes, but another curious detail uniting them is that they were all also brought to police attention by routine traffic violations. While living in Florida, for an example, Mohammed Atta ran afoul of traffic law on numerous occasions, and an arrest warrant was even issued after he skipped a court appearance related to not having a valid driver's license during a traffic stop, which raises the haunting possibility that his fatal path might have been interrupted had these transgressions been linked to other legal violations, such as overstaying a visa. In fact, at least 2 of the other 9/11 hijackers had been pulled over for speeding as well. This is it. Research, you know. And when I patrolled with these cops in America in Halifax County, when they do, and I'm observing, a stop on a car, they say that's the most sensitive time in the life of a policeman on patrol. When you stop a car and approaching the car, you don't know what you're going to meet coming out there at you. Could be a murderer in flight like O.J. Simpson at one time and others. You just don't know. And they approach these cars very, very cautiously. 2 or 3 other cars pull up on the scene, and their job is to observe when the traffic cop is interfacing with the car if practicable, and to watch the occupants of the car and to see if they're throwing anything outside or any false moves. They have a really wonderful system which we are wanting to see in Trinidad and Tobago, but it will take some training, it will take some resources, it will take some time. So, Madam Speaker, as I was saying before I went to the reckless proposition by the member for Oropouche East in the statement that I quoted source from, yeah? This is not about collecting revenue. All the statistics shows that when you improve your road traffic violation checks and management, you treat with crime in a major way, which is one this bill will deal with comprehensively. Yeah? So, Madam Speaker, some of the major issues that this is addressing, these measures are addressing, involves the near collapse of the fixed penalty traffic ticketing system, as I have demonstrated with statistics a while ago. The overwhelmed magisterial case list, lack of convenient methods to pay tickets, and when we read the bill, if the member for Princess Tonga did done that, he will see that you now will be given an opportunity to pay your ticket online, which is the most modern, state-of-the-art way of doing most business transactions today. In addition to that, as it now stands, if you receive a ticket in a certain magisterial district, like St. George West, around Port of Spain, so to speak, or in San Fernando, you cannot now pay the ticket anywhere else. So if you went to Tobago for Easter weekend, you had too much to drink, and you sped and you found yourself with a ticket or a violation that led to a ticket, you will have now to go back to Tobago Magisterial District to pay it. This bill will permit you to pay anywhere across Trinidad and Tobago, making it more efficient and more your revenue, your contribution to the state easier to collect. Nothing is wrong with that. The other thing that this bill addresses, right now, small traffic offenses are criminal offenses, and as I said earlier, we are now going to be decriminalizing them, making them violations so that they could be managed outside of the typical criminal justice process. And then as well, the lack of a system to track and penalize habitual traffic offenders. There are some people who are repeat offenders, recidivists, so the criminologists call them. And in this bill, as you would see later once I get the time, there are provisions here with the demerit system. The more you offend, the more you lose points until you get to the point where you are altogether disqualified from driving. As well, lack of innovative methods to suspend permits for non-payment of fines. As you can see in this bill, Madam Speaker, if you don't pay the ticket, that information will be conveyed to the licensing authority electronically. And now the Transport Commissioner will refuse to renew your driver's permit or the transfer of the motor vehicle for which you are now applying until he is satisfied that you would have paid it.
10 minutes of speaking time is now spent. You're entitled to 15 more minutes if you wish to avail yourself of it. Yes?
I'm gratified, Madam Speaker. I should have it. I should have my 15. So, Madam Speaker, let me reveal some further statistics which tells us a lot about ourselves as a people, as a society. There's one pilot red light camera system, the AG alluded to it, right at the Rice Road outside of this Parliament. And there are a number of violations for this current year. In January, there were 3,981 violations. People went through that red light just so whoosh, 3,981 times. February, 3,400 times. March, 3,900 times. April, 3,900 times. And May, 4,864 times. And to date, in June, for the month of June to date, current figures, 1,297 times. Two things I'll tell you about that. Madam Speaker, that reveals, just that one location reveals a daily violation of about 300 vehicles, you know. Minister, a daily, that's 9,000 a month, you know.
No.
Huh?
50.
What?
57.
The total figure I added up there. About how much? That's, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. My friend is interfering with me. There's a monthly average of...
Not to be distracted. Please direct your contribution to the chair.
Can I get injury time then, Madam Speaker? I want 5 minutes injury time. That's a monthly average of 9,000. Right? You know what? The system outside the parliament here started to become overwhelmed in its collection of the data. So you know what the engineers did since it's a pilot project? They adjusted the speed to capture violations, not at 50 kilometers an hour, but they put it higher. And the madness continues anyway. Right? The Trinidad and Tobago Police Service is telling us so far with the speed guns that they have issued tickets to about 12,000 people for breaking the speed limit. When we introduced the speed guns back in May of 2016, at April of 2016, when I was the Minister of Works and Transport, we saw a reduction in the number of violations outside of this building. There was a change in behavior. And the others that we have on the highway. We saw a reduction, but it has gone up again because of the lack of enforcement and the overburden of the system, as we have been arguing in this. And these measures are designed to eliminate that overburden and make prosecution a little bit easier. So with 6 speed guns alone and 12,000 prosecutions, the police are on the job. But you have 9,000 on average violations per month at one location right here in the city of Port-of-Spain on Ryson Road. That's to tell you a lot about this society and how we conduct our affairs, and why members of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, 343 traffic officers, the 7,000 police, we have to find ways for them to come alive. As I say so, Madam Speaker, I know they have the capacity inside of them. And the Minister of National Security is providing them with the resources and the guidance and the leadership, as well as the National Security Council. And we are working steadily to bring the police up to the standard that we know they are well capable of. In Trinidad. Clause 34 of this bill implements or brings into law this red light camera enforcement element, as I've just described it. As you break traffic lights, lives are lost. Lives are lost, and we got to watch that. The new automated system will witness the delivery of citation notices, as I said earlier, in the mail to offenders, in keeping with that best practice that exists in developed countries. There's reliability, greater reliability using the photograph and the video, greater reliability. The manual thing, your word against mine, that is minimized when you have these violations, because you see it in your face. And once you see it, most people plead guilty and they give up the chase. And the courtrooms will now be fitted with television monitors so that the police will be able to show, the complainants or police officers will be able to show to the magistrates that which he or she was speaking about. So that this thing about I didn't do it and all that and the police victimizing me, that will be minimized. In France, very quickly, Madam Speaker, the introduction of these safety cameras resulted in a reduction of road fatalities in the year 2002 from 7,242 to 3,250. Clear evidence in France once they put those cameras around the country. Clear evidence.
50%.
The Journal of Accident Analysis and Prevention stated that between 2003-2010, traffic safety cameras prevented approximately 4,498 fatalities. And over a period of 7 years, 15,000 lives were saved, based on data. Right? In Australia, the first time I heard the word road demons was from a former Australian High Commissioner to Trinidad and Tobago. When he saw me piloting or implementing the speed guns, he called me to attention. We had a conversation. He told me Australia was rampant with road demons, but they put the cameras in and they put the speed guns in, and they have seen substantial decreases to as much as 47%. So when my friend, the member for Oropouche East, and when the member for Princestown gets up here and says, when he gets up here, Madam Speaker, and says that we only trying to raise revenue, the statistics say that that is not true. It is not about money. It is about saving lives. On the statistics as shown, and Madam Speaker, it also raises revenue, which is not a bad thing in the current circumstances in which they put Trinidad and Tobago. I told the member for Tabakit at the top of my presentation, he spoke about their government goals, and the public might not be unjustified in thinking that their main goal was to empty the treasury, and some people might even say they succeeded. But that is another story for another time. So, Madam Speaker, if you look closely at clause 85, that spells, as I said, very beautifully, spells out the whole due process in respect of the notice to contest. And, Madam Speaker, clause 88 I found rather attractive as well, because the magistrate could hear now these matters ex parte. In the current system, you have to get a warrant to come to court if you didn't show up, and then you have to be present for the magistrate to deliberate on the issues. Today, he or she could deal with it in an ex parte manner. This is not altogether new. It already exists, but it will provide for quick disposal of these particular matters in these great numbers, 120,000, and remove and dispel the overburden that the system suffers from. So if my friends really are concerned about the criminal justice system, and if my friends are really concerned about the matters they have done, they will support these measures without butting an eye, Madam Speaker. And Madam Speaker, as I proceed to my conclusion with time having run, it is important, therefore, integrity. I call on the personnel working in the licensing authority. I call on police officers, because I saw a case recently where a police officer was involved in something corrupt to protect a certain driver from his offenses. It never ended up on the Versadex system. All manners of things happen, and this is why the Minister of National Security is taking action to ensure that that institution, which is designed to prevent crime and to detect crime, they must be possessed of integrity. They have to be integrity tested on a regular basis using the most current modern technology, not even the polygraph. There is technology that now exists that is superior to that has to be used, because all manners of things could happen in a corrupt police officer. So I'm saying to the licensing office, we need to support this good, accurate, reliable, trustworthy records. So we have to hunt out those in the licensing office who will, for a few dollars, corrupt the information. Because, Madam Speaker, you would know as a practicing attorney at law and those else, I have come across a certificate of, I have come across, what do you call them? A certified copy for a vehicle that did not exist in reality, you know. Stamped and signed by a transport commissioner, you know. Poor fellow, he must stamp and sign it without even knowing. It didn't exist. All to go to a credit union to get a loan for a vehicle that did not exist. Right? So we need to have proper records, and those who are going to make them improper should be arrested and jailed and fired and otherwise. Madam Speaker, as I wind my way to a conclusion, having elaborated on some of these matters, I commend my friends to pay close attention to clause 88C, which allows a driver an opportunity to show cause why his permit should not be revoked, all with an eye on the principles of natural justice, due process, built into this legislation in condemnation or flying in the face of any call for any constitutionally specified majority. So I am so proud when I read this legislation to know that it has come out of the minds and the brains of some of the lawyers in the Ministry of Works. I don't want to call their names, they may not enjoy that, but there are some lawyers in the Ministry of Works and Transport and some support staff in IT and in road traffic management. They know themselves. And along with the likes of, I want to commend them. This is a magnificent piece of work in which we must all be proud. And I would like to commend them for their work over the last 2 years in support of this effort and the safety and well-being of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. As well, Sharon Inglefield, her name was mentioned here earlier, a stickler for road safety. Arrive Alive. Officer Batson, I'll call his name, he's well known, a part-time police officer, a businessman, but he acts in the position of SRP. He has contributed substantially to this work and this effort as well in public safety. And then that firm, Mr. Vincent Pereira, who leads, I think it is BHP Billiton. I have had much interface with these citizens and a few others whose names do not immediately come. You know yourselves. I want to commend them all. I am satisfied that the measures before us have been properly well thought out, properly well articulated, properly well drafted, and I commend them to my friends on the other side. Madam Speaker, might I thank you.
Member for Oropouche West.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for this opportunity to contribute to this bill to amend the Motor Vehicles and Road Traffic Act 4850 to introduce a system of traffic violations for certain breaches of the Act, to provide for the implementation of a red light camera system, a demerit point system, and the reform of the fixed penalty system. Madam Speaker, before I proceed to deal with this bill, I'd like to deal with a few of the advancements and pronouncements made by the member for Laventille West. Firstly, Madam Speaker, the member for Laventille West said, we on this side, if we borrow money, we vex. They lay the property tax, we vex. Madam Speaker, I would like the member for Laventille West to know that we on this side are here to keep the government in check and balances, and also so that the law that is passed here does not erode the constitutional rights of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. That is what we are here for. The other thing the member for Laventille West said is that property tax. He said he has to thank God that when they lay the property tax, he has to thank God. Perhaps he meant the Court of Appeal decision, but that is exactly what we on this side were saying, Madam Speaker, that if you have to pass this property tax, if you want to lay it, it must be by proper notice. And it's the same thing the Honorable Member for Siparia was saying. It must be properly done. So we welcome the decision of the Court of Appeal. The other thing the member for Laventille West said is that he spoke about the Motor Vehicles Authority in Caroni, saying it's called a shed of shame, costing $275 million. But I believe perhaps he thought it was the Brian Lara Stadium, which cost $1.3 billion. Madam Speaker, the Honorable Attorney General this afternoon, spoke about the ease of doing business. This bill he was laying here this afternoon is for the ease of doing business for the people of Trinidad and Tobago. But, Madam Speaker, we can only ease the work or ease the way of doing business if the things in the licensing office are on due process, meaning, Madam Speaker, is that if there is a one-stop shop for things to be done in the licensing office. Take, for example, Madam Speaker, if a maxi taxi has to be, you have to change ownership of a maxi taxi. What happens is that the commissioner, the transport commissioner, has to do a written approval. And the person who wants to transfer that maxi taxi has to collect it, take for example in Caroni, and take it to Port of Spain. What happens is that only when that file reaches Port of Spain, then he can have that transfer of ownership. And you do not know when that will take place. So, Madam Speaker, as I proceed, we'll see that this bill, Madam Speaker, this Motor Vehicle and Road Traffic Act, what we are seeing, Madam Speaker, is this motor vehicle transportation is the main mode of transport throughout our Twin Island. What we are seeing, Madam Speaker, is that owners of both private and non-commercial vehicles and hired vehicles will really feel the brunt of these suggested provisions, Madam Speaker, if the penalty is not proportional to the violation. What we have found, Madam Speaker, is during the month September 2013, Trinidad and Tobago started the PDA series. And this transition, Madam Speaker, lifted the total number of registered vehicles to over 1 million in Trinidad. So it is really of paramount importance that regulations and legislation that govern this massive sector, Madam Speaker, be compliant really with the evolving societal changes. American economist Gary Becker once said that fines are preferable to imprisonment and other types of punishment because they are more efficient. With a fine, the punishment to offenders is also revenue to the state. Madam Speaker, we all agree really that a fine should be imposed when someone does something wrong. However, we are all concerned about the exorbitant fines contained in this bill, and perhaps we are asking really, is this bill really camouflage as a money bill? Firstly, Madam Speaker, I would like to look at the speed limit and the fines associated with exceeding this limit. I believe, Madam Speaker, that the existing speed limit should really be increased in this country. What we have done, Madam Speaker, is that we have seen that the current speed limit is 80 kilometers per hour, and the fines for exceeding the limit can soar as much as $3,000, Madam Speaker. In these harsh times, Madam Speaker, this fine is simply too much for poor individuals struggling to meet ends. Madam Speaker, during the People's Partnership regime, we built highways throughout the country. We built highways, Valencia, Diego-Martin. And what happened, Madam Speaker, is that in a highway, 80 kilometers is far too slow. Madam Speaker, we all appreciate there's a lack of maturity among motorists. We all can appreciate that. And this is seen daily in roadways, in many roadways, within and outside built-up areas in Trinidad and Tobago. The speed limits for the average vehicle outside built-up areas is 80 kilometers. That is, Madam Speaker, for private motor vehicles, and 65 kilometers for vehicles like buses and maxi taxis. Examples of outside built-up area would be like the highways, Churchill Roosevelt Highway, Sir Solomon Hochul Ho Highway. And the speed limit within a built-up area is 50 kilometers per hour for SS Erin Road and Caroni Savannah Main Road. Madam Speaker, the former Minister of Works and Transport, Mr. Fitzgerald Hinds, at a press conference at the ministry's head office on Friday, 29th April said, and I quote, "When we put the legal speed limit up 80 kilometers, we find that on a daily basis, an average of 550 persons exceed that limit at a single location. Data shows that 55% of fatalities result from speeding." He further indicated that speed guns will be utilized and a fine of $1,000 will be imposed to those who exceed the limit. Madam Speaker, that pronouncement made by the former minister sparked public outcry. And one of the major arguments, and it still is, which is a direct relation between, one has to know whether there's a direct relationship between the speed limit and fatality. And if we were to look at road fatalities, Madam Speaker, and this is information from Arrive Alive, firstly, we look at the total number of road deaths for the first quarter of 2016, which was 40, versus the first quarter of 2017, which was 21. So we see a difference of 19 deaths less. So one may at first glance think that, yes, the speed limit is really working. However, Madam Speaker, if we look closely at the statistics and we switch our focus to where the accidents actually occur, we will see something very different. Because what the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service do is that they utilize flyovers along the various highways as a strategic location to enforce the limit. So when we look at the statistics for road traffic deaths on the highways for the years 2015 and 2016, there has been some considerable change. But Uriah Butler Highway, in 2015 there were 10, and in 2016 there were 12. Churchill Roosevelt Highway, in 2015 there were 15, and in 2016 there were 23. So, Madam Speaker, I use these statistics to emphasize that link between speed limit and road fatality, because on the highways it's not absolute. And that's the reason why I'm saying we should increase it to 100 kilometers per hour. Madam Speaker, when we drive at 80 kilometers in a highway, we start doing things in the vehicle what we're not supposed to do. For example, we look at electronic billboards. We try to change the radio stations. Madam Speaker, we try to speak to someone who is sitting next to us, or even look to the back of us. And what happens, Madam Speaker, is that we have to keep our eyes on the needle, on 80. So we began to feel drowsy. We began to feel sleepy. And in so doing, we could bump into the person who is driving in front of us because we are sleepy. So that's the reason why, Madam Speaker, we are saying increase the speed so we would not get drowsy and bounce someone and cause quickly. Increase the speed. The speed limit to 100.
Take it.
Member for Oropouche.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, we also had an expert on this same speed limit in Trinidad. There was an interview in CNC3 on the 10th of May 2016. And there has also been calls by experts to increase the speed limit on the highway. Traffic engineer Dr. Ray Furlong, he has been studying the country's traffic problems for decades, Madam Speaker. And he believes that the implementation of the speed guns was not properly done. And he stated that a matter of road fatality was due to reckless driving and not necessarily speed. He also recommended, Madam Speaker, he went on to point out that highways were designed to accommodate speeds up to 110 kilometers per hour. He said that there should be a call for the revision of the speed limit once you have proper signage and medians are introduced. So, Madam Speaker, the days for when persons driving Zephyr and Opel and 120Y the highway, Cortina, those days have long gone by. We have vehicles now that have airbags, BMW, we have Audi, and those vehicles are not made to be driven at 80 kilometers per hour on a highway. Madam Speaker, if we look at the international perspective and we compare the speed limits for different countries, we look at Rhino Care Hire International Car Rental Company. This is a company based in London, Madam Speaker. And we compare the driving and the speed limits on these highways, Madam Speaker. You see in Brazil, 80 to 100. Canada, 70 to 110. These are all kilometers per hour. In Denmark, 110 to 130. This is the #1 country in the world where people will want to live. Canada is #2 in the world where people will want to live. Madam Speaker, you see even Japan, 100. United States, 90 to 130. And United Kingdom, 80 to 113. So what we are seeing, Madam Speaker, internationally we see the speed limit is considerably higher than ours here. But as I move on, Madam Speaker, to my other point, I'm also quoting the member for the Minister of Finance. And he said, we are actively considering as a government to increase the maximum speed on the Churchill, Roosevelt, Beetham, and Uriah Butler and Solomon Hochul Highway to 100 kilometers. And he also said that we are then looking to the other roads and the quirks and all the quirks and anomalies. That is the Minister of Finance. Madam Speaker, I now turn to the failure to comply with traffic lights in this bill. And I looked at the newly introduced legislation and the fines associated with failure to comply with traffic light, that is breaking the light. And the introduction of section 66A1, and I quote, a person driving or propelling a vehicle who fails to comply with the indication given by a traffic light signal is liable to a fine of $5,000 for the first traffic violation and a fine of $7,000 for any subsequent traffic violation. This section does not apply to an emergency vehicle. Madam Speaker, the proposed fine is $5,000 for a first traffic violation and $7,000 for the second traffic violation. Madam Speaker, that is equivalent to many of the citizens' salaries in this country. And what we see, Madam Speaker, is that if we were to compare the global fines for running these traffic lights, we see that in New York, if you are ticketed in a city with 1 million or more inhabitants, you will pay according to a scale which is $100 to $300 for the first offense. And when you convert that, Madam Speaker, you get a minimum of $680 TT and a maximum of $2,040. You get, for the second offense in 18 months, you pay between $200 and $500 US, conversion minimum $1,360 and a maximum of $3,400. In Florida, Madam Speaker, you pay $158 US, which is $1,074. In the state of Victoria, Australia, you pay 389 Australian dollars, Madam Speaker, which is a conversion of 1,945 TT dollars. And in Jamaica, you pay 12,000 Jamaican dollars, which is 625 TT dollars. So, Madam Speaker, when we compare these fines, it is really simply too much. Madam Speaker, I will give you an example of where women being robbed at traffic lights. And sometimes that's the reason why sometimes women, they might want to break a traffic light. And I'm giving you two examples.
Standing Order 48-1, please. This is highly irrelevant.
Member for, I've given you some leeway. I'd ask you now to tie what you're saying into the bill that is before us, please.
So, Madam Speaker, I would get into some of the violations. And one of the violations that I think that it seemed very vague is failure to submit breath analysis or willful alternation of concentration of alcohol in his breath or blood. Madam Speaker, we have demerit point 14. And I'm trying to figure out what does this violation really means. Willful alternation. Who is going to willfully alter the concentration of alcohol in his breath or blood? It's on the 9th schedule. There is 14 demerit points, and the fixed penalty is 0. So I'm trying to figure out, Madam Speaker, is it discretionary for the magistrate to decide how much, what is the penalty, Madam Speaker? And I'm trying to figure out if you are stopped and you fail to submit a breath analysis, you have the machine and you refuse to do it. The violation is saying that you fail to submit your breath analysis and willful alternation. How can you alter the concentration of blood, the concentration of alcohol in your breath? Is it that when you stop and you have to take garlic? Is it that you take some soil? I could not understand what is the meaning of this. Right? The other thing, Madam Speaker, it says 27. Right? The other thing, Madam Speaker, is just a minute, Madam Speaker. Taxi driver unsuitably attired. $750 for penalty. And that is what I need to know, Madam Speaker. How do you dress if you have to be a taxi driver? Do you dress with an armless? Do you dress with a short pants? And what about those taxi drivers who are registered like in the airport? What do they do? Dress with a tuxedo if they have to carry tourists? So this thing, taxi driver unsuitably attired, $750. This is ridiculous. Madam Speaker, what about taxi drivers who work High Street in San Fernando?
What is it?
$750. If they are driving and it's called Romney Road, you pay about $5. How many trips this poor man has to make? To buy, not only buy clothes, Madam Speaker, but he has to pay $750. So the question is, Madam Speaker, that is too vague. We need to know what it is that when he is stopped, what it is that the police officer, when he stops him, what is he looking for. Use of a priority bus route by unauthorized vehicle, $2,000. Madam Speaker, I have a personal experience with this. $2,000, my driver was going in the priority bus route. Has my the priority pass, he was charged $2,000. And I was trying to...
But remember, just skip me. With reference to your query on section 25, altering your breath or blood alcohol levels, you can actually do that by either hyperventilating or holding your breath before you blow into the apparatus. So it is quite possible to significantly drop your breath or blood alcohol level by as much as 10 to 15% by either hyperventilating or other matter. Your breath.
Breathalyzing, nice breathalyzing.
Breathalyzing.
They don't test your blood for breathalyzing.
Don't test your blood, your breath.
What is that?
I want to remind members of the provisions of Standing Order 53. This is a debate. Any member who wishes hereafter to join the debate, once they catch my eye, will be entitled to join the debate and rebut any of the submissions made by the member. Member for Oropouche West.
Madam Speaker, I also would like to turn to the amendment here with traffic wardens. And there's an increase in the penalty from $300 to an imprisonment for 6 months to $10,000 and imprisonment for 1 year. And this will result for any driver who fails to comply with the direction given by a traffic warden while on duty and who obstructs a traffic warden in the execution of his duty or aids or incites any person not to comply with the directions of a traffic warden or to obstruct a traffic warden in the execution of his duty. Madam Speaker, a traffic warden, I do not want to sound condescending, but I need to know really, is it that the traffic wardens are coming on par with police officers? Do traffic wardens have powers of arrest? And to have this penalty increase because it comes on par with the Police Act, Madam Speaker, I need to know really all these powers are given to traffic wardens if it's really what is really needed at this time to give them those powers. Madam Speaker, and I just want to quote.
Member for Aruka Maloney. While I understand cross-talk is part of the tradition, I would ask you all please to comply with Standing Order 53.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, when we look at the Police Service Act, according to the Police Service Act, Chapter 1501, Section 50H, a person who resists or obstructs an officer in the exercise of his function under Section 50, 50A, B, C, D, or E commits an offense under Section 59 and is liable on summary conviction to a fine of $10,000 and an imprisonment of 2 years. So that is what I'm saying, Madam Speaker. The traffic warden and the police, they are apparently coming on par with this legislation. And Madam Speaker, I just would like to quote what a traffic warden had said on Tuesday, July 29th, 2014. She said, "My salary is $4,700, which is interim. I have no benefits and I'm on contract. The PSA represents this organization, but we do not have the majority for collective agreements, and being on contract, most are fearful of persecution. I am a traffic warden, even though sometimes I wish I was not. The police laugh at us with their many benefits and superior pay. When we report our abuse to them, they ignore us." That's the reason why, Madam Speaker, I'm using that comparison to show why those powers are now wielded by the traffic wardens. Madam Speaker, this bill, as I come to a close, Madam Speaker, is that what we find is that for things to move
Honourable Member for
efficiently-
Oropouche West, your original 30 minutes have now expired. You're entitled to an extension of
Just a few
time.
more minutes to wrap up, Madam Speaker.
You may proceed.
Is that what we should have or ought to have, Madam Speaker, in the licensing offices, whether it's Point Fortin, whether it's Chaguanas, whether it is Port of Spain, what we should have really is a one-stop shop where you go and things happen as in unison, that you do not have to do one document in one office. Like for example, in Caroni, you have to submit one document there, then they take your file and send it on to Port of Spain. So we need to have things that run smoothly and efficiently. I thank you there.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I wish to first congratulate the Honourable Attorney General, the member for Laventille West, the present Minister of Works and Transport, the officials of the Ministry of Works and Transport, and even the officials from the Ministry of Public Administration and Communication, who all played some role in the bringing of this bill to the Parliament. Madam Speaker, I want to pay special attention to the implication of this bill for good public administration, as the member for Tabakit addressed. He spoke about the new building in Frederick Settlement and the impact that has had on the delivery of services by the licensing office to the public. And he's right. It has made a tremendous impact on the delivery of public services, and that was always the intention of this government, going as far back as 2003, when there was a deliberate effort to improve the working conditions of public officers by putting them into buildings where that were more conducive to productivity. And the government campus, which was recently opened, was built for that same reason. Unfortunately, it was left 5 years empty, but we have since corrected that, and the same responses that the member for Tabatkit got in Frederick Settlement, we have been hearing that about the customs building, the immigration building, and even the AG's office. So there is a link between putting people in good buildings and facilitating that kind of culture change that the public and all of us would like to see. I was disappointed to hear him refer to the people moving from Shogunas to Point Fortin to buy their licenses. Now, I am from Shogunas originally. I got my driver's permit at the Shogunas licensing office when I was 18. And I can say as a fact that most of the people who got their permits around that time paid for their license. And some of them didn't even bother to set the regulation. They paid it, and got license and regulation at the same time. And now, that's a long time ago, and I would like to believe that it has changed. Now, I have never gone to Point Fortin to get a driver's permit, so I don't know where the member for Tabakit would have got that information and casting aspersions on the people of Point Fortin. You know, I can give you a story. Now, unlike the member for Princetown, I have not been stopped for driving under any condition. And the member for Oropouche West, spoke about, she spoke a lot about the problems that people who break the law will face. Never at one point encouraging people to obey the law so that you would not have to pay the fines. When I was a new driver, also new to driving in Port of Spain, I remember being stopped by a policeman for breaking a major road, moving from Cipriani Boulevard onto the Queen's Park Sabara. And now, I lived in Touchwood Village, Shogunas, and my driver's permit had my address. So I got the ticket, and I proceeded to go to the police station, which was then the place to pay the fine, which was then at the corner of Cipriani Boulevard and Chagrit Road in Port of Spain. And a friend of mine from Shogunas was the cashier. And he was amazed that I came to pay the fine. I said, people don't pay the fines. You know, you can get a ticket, you get a ticket in Port of Spain. No policeman is going to drive to Shogunas, find you in Touchwood Village, and give you a summons to appear in court. And that is the problem that this bill seeks to fix. So that it doesn't matter where you get the ticket, now you are forced to pay the fine and you will be tracked down. Now, I just wanted to address 2 points raised by the member for Princetown, who mentioned the issue of that if you get in an accident and the driver drives off, there's no way for you to track them down. And now, it's clear that he didn't read the bill, because the bill clearly states that where an owner pays a penalty, this is in 79D, When an owner pays a penalty under this part, he may recover the sum paid from the person who was driving the motor vehicle at the time the photographic image or video recording referred to in section 1 was captured. And now that speaks to somebody driving the car different from the other. But the point is that the bill assumes that whenever an accident occurs, you can use the technology to get the person involved in the accident, and they can be prosecuted and made to pay the fine. And the most important part of this bill, I want to talk about it, the implication for public administration, is the fact that you will be using technology for the for the very first time in dealing with the problems at the licensing office and in dealing with a major issue of crime, as the AG said earlier. Now, if you look at clause 79H3, where it says that the service of a citation notice under the section is deemed to be effected on the owner on the 8th day following the date on which the notice is delivered, left, affixed, published, or electronically transmitted. In subclause 2, it says that you can effect by publishing in a daily newspaper or electronic transmission through email. So the bill, for the very first time, brings ICTs, electronic transmission, into the enforcement of the traffic regulation, and in terms of the enforcement of dealing with crime. And the member for Princestown spoke about, I think he was referencing some of the points made by the AG, that these things are pie in the sky, they won't be happening. And I think he is unaware of the significant work that this government is doing and is doing through ICTs to ensure that we come up to scratch. Only today, Cabinet approved a request for proposals so that we are going to significantly upgrade the government backbone to allow the Ministry of Works, which now cannot work on the government backbone because their ICT needs are too significant for the capacity of the backbone. And it is going to be upgraded so that the Ministry of Works and all the large ministries interact with and use the data storage facilities of the data centers associated with the government backbone as a result of the changes that we anticipate will come with the new backbone. And it is part of the preparation that we have been making to deal with the use of ICTs across the public service, so that we are not just putting public servants in new buildings equipped for the modern way of work, but we are also ensuring that we have the ICT infrastructure to support the new cameras, the new systems that will be part of the licensing arrangement. And it's important for us to do that. In preparing for this, I looked at a number of newspaper reports about the licensing office and the transportation system over the last few years. Now, let's look at what newspaper was this? I think the Express, February 7, 2011. Car dealers call for end to outdated licenses. Car dealers are disturbed by allegations of illegal relicensing of stolen cars in the country and are calling for the dismantling of the licensing division in Trinidad and Tobago. Automotive Dealers Association President Philip Nags said yesterday that new dealers did not have the right technology. Another article, car buyers told that Port of Spring licensing office closed early. It says, auto dealers were upset yesterday following complaints that buyers of new and used vehicles could not collect their cars because the licensing office in Port of Spain has temporarily suspended the licensing of vehicles since last week. Another story, January 23, 2015, problems at Tobago's licensing office. For motorists in Tobago, getting a vehicle ownership transfer effected can be a nightmare. We are told that some people have had to wait for years. It's probably because there's only one senior licensing officer at an agent licensing division at Shaw Park. Another story, malfunctional AC at licensing fix. Operation at the licensing office on Rising Road, Port of Spain, should return to normal today after following the repair of a non-functioning air conditioning unit at the government office. Members of the public were locked out of the licensing office most of this week after the office closed early. April 23, 2012, dealers called on Devon to fix licensing office. He was then the Minister of Transport. September 28, cashiers at licensing office to close early tomorrow. Of August 21st, 2024, 2012, work resumes, licensing back in gear. So, over the years, the newspapers were replete with instances of the licensing office being shut down, being corrupt, and not being able to work. And this government has moved speedily to establish the office in Frederick Settlement that will treat with the issues. It has also moved speedily to bring this bill before this House so that we can upgrade the operations of the licensing office and that the people of Trinidad and Tobago can get the kind of attention that they require. I'm happy to hear the member for Tabakik saying that they intend to support the bill, and having said that, they are also raising issues all times in support of the lawbreakers who complaining that the fines may be too high, people can't pay. But the other point raised by the AG that this is also about changing the culture, and it's not the culture of just driving, it's the culture of how we interact with one another. If you believe that you can commit a crime, a small crime, drive dangerously, be discourteous on the road, it doesn't take much for you to graduate to larger crime. It's the broken window theory all over again, and we need to ensure that at all times we push that people do the right thing. And I was very disappointed to hear the members who, instead of, you can criticize any bill, you can make improvements, but the only complaint I'm hearing from the other side is that the fines are too harsh. Now, the taxi driver, whether he's driving in a Merino or a Tuxedo, he could he could avoid no, that's my country roots. He could avoid the fine by simply driving within the speed limit and driving with care. And, you know, if you drive along the priority bus routes, as we all do as members of parliament, there has been a distinct drop in the number of drivers who are driving illegally on the bus route since the imposition of fines. I know I drive north to south quite often, and I saw the change in the driving habits of patrons with the introduction of the of the speed guns. We have seen the decrease in the number of road deaths as a result of the introduction of the breathalyzer and of the speed guns. So these things have had an impact. And for us to just simply say that we should decrease the fine, I don't think is a proper response to this bill. There may be issues that need to be corrected, but the number of fines or the size of the fine is certainly not one of them. Madam Speaker, sometimes I feel that the opposition, I wouldn't say opposing for opposing sake, but I don't get the impression that they understand the serious business that we are about and the serious problem that we are trying to solve. This is not about UNC and PNM. It is not even about having fun. It is about saving Trinidad and Tobago. I think someone mentioned the cost to the public of the number of road accidents, the cost that to the healthcare system from having to treat with the victims of road accidents, the victims of road rage, and these are things that we really need to take on if we are to move this country forward. When we treat with the issue of road accident, we treat with the issue of traffic, and we treat with the issue of stolen vehicles, we will be making a significant dent in the issue of crime. And there is a significant nexus between the judicial system, the licensing office, and the Attorney General made the point, which seems to be lost on the opposition, that by doing this and introducing the demerit point system, we will be removing the number of cases that are currently before the court. I think it's the member for Princeton who disputed that. In fact, he said he would be seeing more cases before the court as a result of us doing this. Now, I didn't see the logic of that point, but I guess we will just have to take him at his word for it. Now, as we go about modernizing the traffic system and the public service, and we're doing so through the licensing office. It's not the only arm of government that we will be treating with. We also need to ensure that we get the right people to work this system. And this bill is just the first part of where we want to go. So we are putting the laws to treat with the ICTs, the use of the emails, use of the cameras, and soon we'll have to deal with the recruitment of the people who will man the system, and we will be getting a really novel and improved system to deal with road traffic, to deal with licensing vehicles, and to deal with our conduct on the roads. So, having said that, I really want to again thank the Attorney General, to thank the staff of the Ministry of Works, and to thank the opposition for agreeing to come on board with us as we save this country. Thank you.
Thank you very kindly, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, may I suggest that before I would like to suggest before we take the adjournment, that we bring greetings on Corpus Christi and to the labor movement for Labor Day. Yeah. Corpus Christi first?
Yes, we'll take the Corpus Christi greetings first. And members, as we know, tomorrow the country will be commemorating the Feast of Corpus Christi. And this religious feast, although it's exclusively a Catholic feast, and it is celebrated in countries that are predominantly Catholic, it is historically binding on our very multi-religious nation of Trinidad and Tobago, dating back to the time of the Spanish rule. This most sacred solemnity in the Roman Catholic calendar celebrates the tradition and the belief in the body and blood of Jesus Christ and his presence in the Holy Eucharist. I now call upon members to express greetings on the occasion of the Feast of Corpus Christi. Member for St. Anne's.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. It is my honor to rise and convey greetings on behalf of the government to the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, particularly the Roman Catholic and Anglican communities, on the occasion of Corpus Christi, and the Methodists. In honoring this day as a public holiday, we join with at least 23 countries worldwide to celebrate the institution of the Holy Eucharist. The Feast of Corpus Christi speaks of the humility and service of Jesus Christ and his willingness to be a living sacrifice, broken and spilled out for the good of others. Christians the world over hold the body and blood of Christ to be very significant. Indeed, the life and times of Jesus Christ served to mark the spot between two major eras of the world, commonly referred to as BC, before Christ, and AD, in the year of our Lord. Corpus Christi, the feast of the body of Christ, first celebrated in the mid-1200s, stands as a constant reminder of the importance of sacrifice for others. All of us in this honorable house know what sacrifice means as we strive to be of service to our constituents. And every citizen of this country has an opportunity to sacrifice for someone else. Sacrifice is the essence of service. The Bible exhorts us in Ephesians 5:2 to walk in the way of love, just as Christ loved us and gave himself up for us as a fragrant offering and sacrifice to God. We are to walk in the way of love. And Madam Speaker, if there is one thing this country needs, it is love. The unfortunate experience of Father Clyde Harvey just this week is testimony to this fact. So as we celebrate this national holiday tomorrow, let us exalt its principles as we follow the example of Christ. Let us honor sacrifice. Let us seek out opportunities for service. Let us promote the good of others before self and devote ourselves willingly as living sacrifices, holy and acceptable to God. I close with the words of the legendary hymn writer, St. Thomas Aquinas. O saving host, O bread of life, thou goal of rest from pain and strife, embattled are we, poor and weak, grant us the strength and help we seek. On behalf of the government of Trinidad and Tobago, to the citizens of this country, do have a holy Corpus Christi.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. It is indeed an absolute honor to bring greetings to the Roman Catholic, Anglican, Methodist community on the observance of Corpus Christi, the body of Christ, tomorrow, Thursday, 15th of June, 2017. This most sacred ceremony celebrates the tradition and belief in the body and blood of Jesus Christ and his real presence in the Holy Eucharist. Allow me briefly to read from the Gospel taken from Luke chapter 9, verse 12 to 17. And when the day began to wear away, then came the 12 and said unto him, Send the multitude away, that they may go into the towns and country round about, and lodge, and get victuals, for what we are here is in a desert place. But he said unto them, Give ye them to eat. And they said, We have no more but 5 loaves and 2 fishes, except we should go buy meat for all this people. For they were about 5,000 men. And he said to his disciples, Make them sit down by the 50s in a company. And they did so, and made all of them sit down. Then he took the 5 loaves and the 2 fishes, and looking up to heaven, he blessed them, and brake, and gave to the disciples to set before the multitude. And they did eat, and all were filled. And there was taken up of all the fragments that remained to them 12 baskets. In reading and understanding this gospel, the term solidarity comes to mind. Solidarity entails unity and fellowship. Corpus Christi is a celebration of the solidarity of God with man, a solidarity that never runs out, a solidarity that never ceases to amaze us. God draws us near to us in the sacrifice of the cross. He lowers himself, entering into the darkness of death in order to give us his life, which overcomes evil, selfishness, and death. In our beautiful Twin Island Republic, our pledge speaks clearly of what solidarity should mean. It says, I will strive in everything I do to work together with my fellow men of every creed and race for the greater happiness of all and the honor and glory of my country. Let Corpus Christi be the day that allows us to reflect on our thoughts and our actions. Let it be a day where we can destroy the seeds of doubt, hatred, inequality, and injustice. Let it be a day of learning to be humble and penitent. And most importantly, let this day be the Blessed Sacrament, the body of Christ. Replant the seeds of faith in humanity and God himself. Madam Speaker, on behalf of the Honorable Leader of the Opposition, Mrs. Kamala Prasad Bisesa, and those of us on the opposition benches, we extend our best wishes to the Roman Catholic, the Anglican, and the Methodist community, and by extension, the people of Trinidad and Tobago, on this Corpus Christi observance and celebration. Thank you.
Honorable members, I also join with you in extending greetings to the Catholic communities and to all citizens of our nation. From the secular perspective, all citizens of Trinidad and Tobago consider Corpus Christi as a day for planting, as our local tradition holds that this day is the most fertile day of the year. It is my hope that as we plant grain, saplings, and seedlings in the expectation of reaping a bountiful harvest, that simultaneously we use this occasion to sow those attitudinal seeds which will manifest in our nations the fruits of the Spirit: peace, charity, goodness, patience, faithfulness, kindness, countenance, and self-control. May we all have a blessed and joyous Corpus Christi, and may God bless our nation. As we also well know, Monday would be Labor Day in Trinidad and Tobago. Labor Day celebrations in Trinidad and Tobago were first declared as a public holiday in the year 1973. Celebrated on June 19th, it is the anniversary of the day of the Butler oilfield riots, which took place in 1937, to address the unjust conditions employees endured in many sectors of the society. Those conditions consisted of abuse, underpayment for labor, racism, economic depression, and poor living standards for the working class. As we recognize the conscientious efforts of our labor unions to ensure an improved labor environment today, I now call upon members to extend Labor Day greetings to our nation. Minister of Education.
Madam Speaker, on behalf of the government of Trinidad and Tobago, I rise to bring greetings to the people of Trinidad and Tobago on the occasion of Labor Day, which will be celebrated on Monday, June 19th. Labor Day is celebrated in recognition of the invaluable contribution labor has made to the development of this country. Born out of the struggles of workers who demanded that their working and living conditions must be improved, Labor Day has its genesis in the events of 1937. When workers on the sugar estates joined their comrades in the oil fields and staged massive protests against the injustices that were meted out to them in their living and working conditions. In our celebrations, we acknowledge and pay tribute to the labor leaders who went before. Heroes like Tubal Uriah Buzz Butler, Adrian Colorenzi, and Arthur Andrew Cipriani, who fought relentlessly for many of the rights we enjoy today. To the labor leaders of today, and also to the labor leaders of yesterday, most of all to the workers of Trinidad and Tobago who gave their blood, sweat, and tears so that our situations can be improved, we say a big and hearty thank you. May you use June the 19th to rejuvenate yourselves in your quest to build a Trinidad and Tobago of which we all will be proud. God bless. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. And on behalf of the United National Congress and the Leader of the Opposition and all my colleagues on this side of the House, I take great pleasure in bringing greetings to the labor movement, the trade union movement, and by extension, the workers of Trinidad and Tobago. June the 19th is a very significant day in the history of Trinidad and Tobago. Taking into consideration it had its genesis in the labor riots of 1937, which really started on the Esperanza Sugar Estate in 1934 and moved on with a series of strikes between 1934 into 37, which culminated with the strikes. And as a result of the strikes, there were widespread discontent in Trinidad and Tobago at that point in time, and it resulted in the formation and registration of the All Trinidad Sugar Estates and Factory Workers Trade Union, led by Adrian Kolarienzi, also known as Krishna Denarain, at that juncture, and the Oilfield Workers Trade Union, led by Tubal Ruraya Buzz Butler. And that was the beginning of the modern trade union movement in Trinidad and Tobago. It resulted in the legal recognition of trade unions, the right to strike, and the right to engage in collective bargaining. So the workers of Trinidad and Tobago in 2017 are indeed indebted to the forefathers and those who were in the vineyards between 1934 to 1937. And based on the struggles of those pioneers between that period, the right to strike, the right to engage in collective bargaining, and the legal recognition of trade unions became the order of the day. And as a result of that, workers in this country now enjoy what is called modern benefits as group health plans, pension plans, employee stock ownership plan, bonuses and productivity schemes and so on in this day and age. And just for the records, as we reflect upon the importance of Labor Day, and from a historical point of view, I would like to read into the records, because we focus, rightly so, on Tubal Ruraya Buzz Butler and Adrian Kolarienzi. But it is important that those who are looking on and those young people in Trinidad and Tobago, they become accurate with those two, those individuals who would have given their blood, sweat and tears towards the political, social and economic development of Trinidad and Tobago. And as my colleague on the other side, the Member of Parliament for Arima and the Minister of Education, a former trade unionist in his own right, who has recognized the importance and significance of Tubal Ruraya Buzz Butler, Adrian Kolarienzi, and Captain Arthur Andrew Cipriani. It is important to recognize the fallen comrades, such as the late George Weeks, Michael Lals, Angus Lal Singh, Vernon Glean, Kenrick Rennie, James Manswell, Francis Mangro, Nathaniel Critchlow, Joe Young, Sylvester Ramqua, Clotilde Walcott, Sahidan Ramrup, Elma Francois, Bade Sagan Maraj, Boise Moore Jones, Nuevo Diaz, Alan Campbell, Sylvester Maraj, Rudal Radhe, Baliram Maraj, and within recent time, Anand Tiwari. And those who are alive, such as Labour greats and stalwart, Basdev Pandey, Albert Aberdeen, Clive Nunes, Cecil Paul, Errol MacLeod, Dudnat Maraj, Sylvan Wilson, Gregory Rousseau, Kirill Jack, Patrick Rabatali, Wayne Corby, Robert Giuseppe, and Subnat Rambox, Jacqueline Jack, Janice Fleming Scott, Roland Graham, and my good friend, the Member of Parliament for Arima and former President of Cuba, Mr. Anthony Garcia, and the Minister of Labour and Enterprise Development, Jennifer Baptiste Priner. And our very good friend, the leader of the minority opposition in the Tobago House of Assembly, Comrade Watson Yu. But more importantly, Madam Speaker, as workers would assemble in their thousands at Charlie King Junction on Monday, and if in any other part of Trinidad and Tobago, it is important for them to do a sense of reflection and introspection to continue the growth, progress, and development of the trade union movement in its continued role in the development of Trinidad and Tobago. And more importantly, I was proud to belong to a government that embraced the labor movement and ensured that there was what we would call people-centered development and unprecedented and unparalleled development as it relates to workers and their issues in Trinidad and Tobago between 2010 and 2015, which saw a creation of 55,000 jobs, controlled inflation, unemployment, the increase in the minimum wage, and also ensured that productivity and health and safety and social security benefits were addressed in a meaningful and tangible fashion, and the ability of workers to purchase goods and services was maintained based on our commitment to the collective bargaining process and ensuring and upholding the principle of good industrial relations practices. And I call upon the labor movement today to ensure that they understand their role and function as we go beyond 2017. I call upon them to display a sense of labor unity and address the issues that are important in the continued upliftment and development of the workers of this country by calling for amendments to the Retrenchment and Severance Benefit Act and all supporting pieces of legislation, taking into consideration that 25,000 persons have lost their jobs in Trinidad and Tobago over the last 2 years. It is important to uphold health and safety in the workplace. It is important to uphold pension benefits that are in the interest of addressing the continued inflation and eroding of the ability of workers to purchase goods and services. And at the end of the day, Madam Speaker, stand firm and defend against a government that seems to be hell-bent on undermining the principles of good industrial relations practices in Trinidad and Tobago. So, Madam Speaker, we on this side are committed to the continued progress and development of workers in this country. We on this side remain firm in upholding the principles of free and fair collective bargaining, and we remain firm to ensuring that the labor movement continues to survive in Trinidad and Tobago beyond 2017. Long live the labor movement of Trinidad and Tobago. I thank you.
Honorable members, I also join with fellow members in extending Labor Day greetings to the labor movement and to the nation. Every nation owes its success to hard work and dedication of its greatest resource, its citizens. Since the Industrial Revolution, labor has been the driving force of economic development. Internationally, a day, usually May Day, 1st of May, is set aside to recognize the efforts of labor. We set aside the 19th of June based on our own historical experience to celebrate the contributions and achievements of all those responsible for building this great nation. We should never forget during this occasion that we are an independent nation because our workers and labor unions played a significant role in our liberation struggles. Let us therefore not view Labor Day as just another holiday, but let us truly reflect on the significance of the occasion and continue to work hard and demonstrate that a genuine work ethic upon which this country is founded and enshrined in the two words of our motto, discipline and production, will, if practiced, continue to make Trinidad and Tobago a force to reckon with internationally. On behalf of my family and on my own behalf, I wish to record my gratitude to all who have played and continue to play an integral role in creating an equitable and just society in Trinidad and Tobago. May we, on this Labor Day, recommit to the watchwords of discipline, production, and tolerance. I wish you all a safe Labor Day. Leader of the House.
Madam Speaker, before I move the adjournment, I would like to point out that in my discussions with the whip, there is a matter on the adjournment that was supposed to be debated on 2 occasions. However, on this, the 3rd occasion, the member for Barataria San Juan is not here. And I would like to suggest, and I think the whip concurs, that this matter be set aside and it can be brought back again. Madam Speaker, I now beg to move that this House do now adjourn to Friday, the 23rd day of June 2017 at 1:30 p.m., at which time we will be continuing debate on a bill entitled An Act to Amend the Motor Vehicle and Road Traffic Act, Chapter 4850.
Honorable members, the question is that this House now do adjourn to Friday, 23rd June 2017 at 1:30 p.m. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any against? The ayes have it. This House now stands adjourned to Friday, the 23rd of June 2017 at 1:30 p.m.